So, are you ready for my sob story? I personally always hate it when life coaches or success coaches tell their personal, I came from nothing and I had it harder than you story. So I usually don't talk about that. And in fact, a lot of the things I'm gonna mention in this video, I intentionally go out of my way not to talk about because I hate being that like playing the victim guy. But that said, it is honest. And I do wanna tell you where I came from because it is relevant to the content of this video. So without further ado, here are the many, many reasons I was not supposed to be successful with women. Number one, starting off simply, I'm not particularly good looking, right? Now, I know I have amazing style and amazing hair now, but inherently I am, my face is relatively a baby face. I don't have the greatest jawline. I don't have the greatest muscular definition, all those kind of things. I'm also relatively short. There was a time, I'm not saying if it happened during this video necessarily, where sitting in a normal sized chair, I had to put a booster under my feet. Not that that's happening at the moment or anything. Look, I'm not crazy short or anything. I'm 5'7". It's just a little below average height, but I'm not tall by any means. Beyond not being strikingly good looking, perhaps more importantly, when I was growing up, I was a late bloomer. I hit puberty late and I was kind of behind in the physical development, behind in caring about women, behind in dating, all those kind of things versus other guys. Because again, when other guys were at puberty at 13, I maybe hit it at like 15 or something like that. I was a couple years behind in terms of my development. On top of which, once I did finally hit puberty, I had acne for quite a while, and in particular, I had acne on my back and my chest, which made me insecure to take my shirt off. And you're not gonna have a lot of sex if you're afraid to ever take your shirt off. Beyond which, I was raised by parents who were wonderful, loving people. However, they actively discouraged me from being social growing up. I did not go to any of the school dances ever, all through middle school and high school. My father put into me a philosophy that hanging out or anything that wasn't goal-driven and academic and athletic was a waste of time and a waste of my talent. And so I basically went out of my way to avoid going to parties, avoid being social, avoid doing anything that would actually put me in a situation where I could have success with women throughout my entire high school career. Beyond that, my identity for most of my life has been the identity of someone who is good at things, which means I've been super perfectionist, I've been ego-driven, and I've been afraid of failure. So that kept me from approaching girls, kept me from taking risks, kept me from putting myself out there for most of my developmental years. And last but not least, when I did finally start exploring game and start talking to girls, the information that was out there was mostly crap, right? This was 20 plus years ago, and a lot of the advice was terrible, and there wasn't even that much advice to begin with, as opposed to being in the incredible position you're in where you have full channels full of decades of experience on how to be good with girls. I had to figure it all out for myself. So for all these reasons, I really honestly should never have gotten good with girls. It was a massive uphill battle. But why is it that in spite of this, I happen to have gotten so good, while a lot of guys who have many better situations and better resources still struggle? The actual answer is really simple, but profound. So I'm gonna take it step by step. While I did have a lot of things working against me, I had one major thing working in my favor, and that is this. At the age of 18, when I started learning game and talking to girls and trying to figure this whole thing out, I had gotten good at some other things in my life. I had worked and strived and gotten good in a couple other areas. I had worked hard at chess and had some success there. I had worked hard at soccer and had some success there, and I had been successful academically. Now, this led to two things for me which were absolutely critical. Number one, I understood that getting good at something is a process. I could remember a time when I was really bad at soccer and now I was much better, and I knew that journey took time and there was a clear path and a clear progression to that journey. And I could remember a time when I barely knew how the chess pieces moved, and then I knew a time when I had won several chess tournaments and had a lot of success. So again, I knew that progression was possible, and I knew that progression is a process and takes time. And that mentality of understanding that success doesn't come immediately, but success is attainable if you're on a right program and if you have consistency, that mentality was absolutely critical. The other thing that my past success gave me was I believed that I deserved success. I didn't believe that other men were inherently better than me or other men could achieve things I couldn't. I truly believed in my soul that if other men could figure this out, I could figure it out, because I had had success relative to other men and other people in soccer, and success relative to other people in chess, and success relative to other people academically. So I didn't ever have the belief that other people were fundamentally better than me. I believe that what one man can do, another can do. So what happened next? I got really, really lucky a couple times. So up to this point, what's the story? I'm coming into my final years of high school. I've had one date in my entire life, never been kissed, never had a girlfriend, obviously never had sex. I'm clueless, lost, afraid, and antisocial. So what happened next that got me to actually getting some success? Well, to be honest, I got really, really lucky on 2 separate occasions. Lucky occurrence number 1. So it was my senior year of high school. I was on a class trip to Spain and we were in this beautiful museum, and I was there with some of my peers who were asshole boys who, you know, liked to poke fun and liked to give shit and whatnot. We happened to see absolutely stunningly gorgeous girl who is part of a different school group or class trip or whatever. And I was basically dared to go do the approach. I was the one who spoke Spanish the best, so I was the one who got peer pressured into doing it. And of course, as an 18-year-old dude, even if you have no experience with girls, you have to front like you know what you're doing. You have to be like, oh yeah, I could pick that girl up, right? And so at this moment, I had to go like, you know, walk the walk and back up my talk because I would have looked really lame if I backed down. So I got peer pressured into doing this approach. That was lucky thing number 1. Lucky thing number 2 about this approach was I walked over and I opened this girl in Spanish, and I said the worst opener that you could possibly ever imagine. I basically said in Spanish, I'm here in this incredible museum, and of all the beautiful things around, you're the one that struck me the most, which is just, yeah, it's pretty bad. The girl didn't speak Spanish at all. She looked at me confused and kind of like, you know, feeling almost kind of lower value because she didn't speak Spanish, and said, I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. Can you speak English? And I was able to come back with, I don't know, it's really tough for me, but I'll try, in kind of a cocky way. And then we had an actually normal conversation. It was pleasant enough. She'd been on the back foot from the start, and we exchanged phone numbers. And so I was able to walk back to my class group as an absolute hero, feeling like the ultimate Mac Daddy, and I was on top of the world. And I got that rush of what a successful cold approach felt like, not only in terms of, oh my God, this girl accepted me, but in terms of feeling like an absolute boss alpha male out of pure dumb luck one time. The second absolutely fortuitous experience was that in choosing a college, I was highly irresponsible and highly unprepared. So at the last minute, I had to run around to all the different schools I'd been accepted to and decide where I actually wanted to go. So when I got to these schools, I was traveling around from school to school with my mom, and so I had a few options of how to decide on the school. I could either walk around the campus with my mom, I could walk around on some guided campus tour, which I knew inherently is bullshit, or I could walk around the campus and figure it out somehow. And after walking for a little bit, I realized I'm not going to learn anything about the school from just looking at like trees and bushes and grass and landmarks. I have to actually talk to the students. So I started walking around and just asking people, saying, hey, I'm a prospective student. I don't really know who to ask or what to ask, but I have to figure out if this is a school I want to go to. So can you tell me a little bit? Do you like the school? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? Etc. And as I started to do this, people were really, really friendly to me. And as I was walking around and talking to these friendly people, I saw beautiful college girls, and I thought to myself, well, if I'm just asking advice, I can ask advice from a girl just as easily as I can from a guy. So I started exclusively approaching girls on these college campuses and asking them how they liked their college experience, what was fun to do, that kind of stuff. And luckily, the girls were friendly and they started inviting me to things. They're like, hey, you know what? You want to come back to my dorm and talk to my friends? And so I got invited back to this hot girl's dorm room and got to talk to all her hot friends, which for me as a 18-year-old, never been kissed virgin was absolutely mind-blowing. Or I started getting invited to these parties like, hey, there's a frat party tonight. You want to come with us? I was like, wow, okay, amazing, right? And so I actually felt popular for the first time in my life. I was getting attention from girls for the first time in my life, and I felt on top of the world. So this was amazing for my confidence, but even more so when I did actually go to college the next year, my entire experience of college life was walking around campuses talking to hot girls. So I fortunately kept doing that once I actually got there, and that is what really kickstarted me towards getting good with girls. So I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, well, Todd, I guess you just got really lucky because you got early success. And it is true that I got some early successes, but I'll tell you what, I'm sure I also got some early failures. I don't actually remember them because they weren't that relevant to me in hindsight, but I'm sure that when I was walking around campus and talking to girls, there were some girls that said, I'm sorry, I have to go to class right now. But that wasn't very relevant to me at the time because that's kind of, you know, expected and normal and it's reasonable. But when a girl opened up and smiled to me and invited me into a conversation, that was unexpected and positive. And my reaction to that was the wide-eyed enthusiasm of a young child. We're like, oh my God, This is mind-blowing. This is amazing. The world is full of wonder, right? That was my attitude. My attitude was any negative stuff, well, okay, fine, I'll deal with it. As I've been teaching guys for the last 20 years, guys who have this attitude where when they do an approach, they find the positive about it and make it fun, go really far in game. Guys who have the attitude where when they do an approach, they criticize it and find the negative and get down on themselves, they have a really, really hard time in game. So that attitude of finding the positive and being wide-eyed and full of wonder and treating adrenaline as excitement is such a valuable way to view game and to view life. And so because I was viewing game this way, because it was this constant emotional high for me, because it was these chemicals in my body that felt so good, I literally got addicted to it. I got addicted to game. I got addicted to this good habit. For almost my entire time in college, I couldn't wait to go out and approach more girls. I couldn't wait to get that thrill. I couldn't wait to get that next phone number. Never mind if it flaked. Never mind if the date didn't go anywhere. Phone number felt amazing. I took the positives from my approaches and I got addicted and obsessed about doing the approaches. If every single time you go out, it feels difficult and brutal and painful, you're not gonna stick with it very long. It is so critical that you find the fun. One exercise I give students over and over again is I tell them every single approach you do, you have to come back and you have to tell me what was fun or funny or educational about that approach. What was good about what just happened? And every single approach, you should be able to find the good thing and name it. If you can do that, it's gonna make it much easier to stick with this process. The other thing that happened because I was so excited and dedicated to this was that I eventually started to meet up with other people who were doing the same thing and sharing ideas, and then that made my progress even exponential from there. So basically, what was the key to my success? Number one, I had a couple good character traits. Number two, I got lucky. But number three, and most importantly, I created this particular feedback loop that made it absolutely certain that I would eventually get good. And here is that feedback loop. Step one, I took action. Now, when I took action, there were 3 possible outcomes and only really 3 possible outcomes. The worst possible outcome was something would go bad and I would get educated. And then I would get excited about what I could learn. Better yet, I would get some level of success and I'd feel encouraged and I'd get excited about my success. And then sometimes, sort of rarely, but certainly often enough, I would get an outlandishly good result that I didn't deserve. And when that happened, I would get inspired. I'd be through the roof and that would fuel my fire and drive my obsession and keep me going for the long haul. And then again, I would get extremely excited. So here's the key. Off of all 3 results, I learn something, I get a moderate success, or I get incredibly lucky. All 3 would get me excited. And when I got excited, all of those would encourage me to take more action. Once I was in this feedback loop, it was absolutely certain that I would eventually get good at game. Now, a lot of things enhanced that. Me studying and being smart helped. Me meeting people who are already good at game helped. However, I was strongly on that path, and no matter what, I was eventually gonna get there as soon as I developed this feedback loop. This is what was key to me getting good. So what's the takeaway? Number one, understand the attitude and understand this feedback loop. Number two, understand that yes, luck does play a factor in getting good at game, but you know what? Luck can't happen until you take action. So in a lot of ways, you create your own luck in game. There's a famous phrase, they say fortune favors the brave, and in my experience, it's true. Taking action is the only way you're ever going to have luck on your side. Thanks for watching, thanks for sticking with me on my personal journey, and I'll see you on the next video.